If Walmart were a country, its economy would be bigger than Sweden's. Let that sink in for a second. We are not talking about a company anymore. We are talking about a sovereign nation-state disguised as a retail outlet. A global superpower that doesn't have an army, but controls a workforce of 2.3 million people. That is roughly the size of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Except instead of rifles, they are armed with price scanners and vests made of despair. Every single year, this blue-vested Leviathan rakes in over $600 billion. That is more money than the GDP of Belgium. It is more cash than the value of every single thing produced in Thailand. When a corporation has enough capital to theoretically buy a medium-sized European nation and turn it into a parking lot, we have moved past the realm of capitalism and entered the era of economic theology. And you are not a customer. You are a tithe payer in the church of the rolling back price. You think you know what this place is because you have walked through those automatic sliding doors 1,000 times. You think it is just a store. That is the greatest trick the devil ever pulled, convincing the world he was just a convenient place to buy bulk toilet paper and discount tires at 3 in the morning. But look closer. Stand in the center of that supercenter, under the hum of those soul-bleaching fluorescent lights, and really look at the scale of the operation. It is an ecosystem so vast, it creates its own weather patterns. It dictates the price of corn in Iowa, the wage of a factory worker in Bangladesh, and the survival of a trucking company in Tennessee. It is the economic singularity. It is a gravitational black hole so dense that nothing, not Main Street, not union labor, not even the laws of supply and demand, can escape its pull. When Walmart sneezes, the global supply chain catches pneumonia. When Walmart decides a bottle of pickles should cost $2.97, the entire pickle industry either figures out how to make it happen or they cease to exist. This isn't a success story about a plucky entrepreneur. This is an autopsy of how the world surrendered. We sold our souls for cheap socks. We traded the vibrancy of our local communities for the convenience of one-stop shopping. And we didn't even read the terms and service. You walk in there looking for a deal, pushing that wobbly cart with the one wheel that screams like a dying animal, and you are participating in a ritual of destruction. You see shelves stacked to the warehouse ceiling with goods, mountains of plastic toys, oceans of sugary cereal, forests of fast fashion. It looks like abundance. It looks like the American dream on steroids, but it is actually a carefully curated illusion of choice. You aren't choosing, you're being funneled. You're cattle in a maze designed by behavioral psychologists to make you buy things you don't need with money you don't have. Consider the layout. It is military precision, masked as chaos. The sheer square footage of these buildings is offensive to nature. They are concrete boxes plunked down on the edge of town, vast, distinct flatlands of asphalt shimmering in the heat, creating heat islands that actually alter the local temperature. Inside, the air is always that specific, sterile chill, smelling faintly of popcorn chicken and rubber tires. It is a sensory deprivation tank designed to make you lose track of time, to disconnect you from the reality that the sun is setting outside, that the world is turning, that you have a life beyond the acquisition of a discounted blender. They have commodified everything. They sell birth certificates and coffins. You can be born, live, eat, dress, and be buried without ever leaving the ecosystem. They have created a cradle-to-grave pipeline of consumption that is terrifyingly efficient. And the most shocking part? We let it happen. We didn't just let it happen. We demanded it. We became addicted to the low price. We got high on the rollback. We stopped asking why the shirt cost $3 and started getting angry when it cost $4. We divorced the price on the tag from the human cost required to print it. We looked at that yellow smiley face, that grinning, bouncing avatar of corporate dominance, and we smiled back, oblivious to the fact that behind the smile was a row of shark teeth. This isn't just a store, friends. It is the apex predator of the modern age, and it has already swallowed the world whole. You are just living in its stomach. To understand the monster, you have to understand the man who built the lab. Enter Sam Walton. If you believe the PR machine, Mr. Sam was just a kindly old grandpa from the Ozarks who drove a beat-up 1979 Ford F-150 pickup truck, wore cheap baseball caps, and just wanted to help his neighbors save a nickel on fishing tackle. That is the fairy tale. That is the Norman Rockwell painting they hang in the lobby to distract you while they pick your pocket. The reality? Sam Walton was not a harmless merchant. He was a ruthless general in a cardigan, a man with an ego the size of Arkansas, and a competitive streak that bordered on pathology. That beat-up pickup truck wasn't a sign of humility. It was camouflage. It was the ultimate prop in the greatest act of corporate theater ever performed. It told the world, I'm just like you, while his bank account screamed, I own you. Sam didn't invent the discount store. He didn't invent retail. What he invented was a weaponized form of frugality. He turned being cheap into a theology. In Bentonville, the unlikely Vatican of this consumerist religion, he preached a gospel of absolute, terrifying efficiency. He didn't just hate wasting money. He viewed it as a personal insult. This is a man who, despite being the richest man in America, would reportedly make his executives stay in budget motels, 8 to a room, sleeping on the floor if they had to, just to save a few bucks on a business trip. Imagine that. You are a vice president of a billion-dollar empire, and you are fighting your colleague for a pillow on a stained carpet because the boss thinks the Holiday Inn is too fancy. That isn't thrift. That is psychological warfare. It sent a message down the chain. If we won't spend money on ourselves, we certainly aren't going to spend it on you, the employee, or you, the supplier. He built the empire on the Saturday morning meeting. This wasn't a casual check-in. It was church. Every Saturday at 7:30 a.m., while the rest of the corporate world was sleeping off the Friday night hangover, Sam had his legions in the office, chanting the Walmart cheer. Have you ever seen this? Grown men and women, executives in suits, spelling out WALMART and doing a squiggly hip shake for the hyphen. It looks ridiculous, but it was brilliant indoctrination. It broke down the individual ego and replaced it with the hive mind. It created a cult of believers who would walk through fire and destroy local zoning laws for the glory of the company. But Sam's true genius, and his true darkness, was realizing that the money wasn't in the selling, it was in the moving. He was the first to realize that a store is just a fancy box for logistics. While Sears and Kmart were worrying about marketing, Sam was launching his own private satellite network. In the 1980s, Walmart had a communications system that rivaled the Pentagon, so they could track exactly how many tubes of toothpaste were sold in Tulsa at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. This data wasn't just for fun. It was the ammunition he used to strangle suppliers. He knew their costs better than they did. He stripped the soul out of the merchant class and replaced it with an algorithm. He didn't care about the quality of the shirt. He cared about the velocity of the shirt. Sam Walton died in 1992, but he didn't really leave. He left behind a ghost that haunts every aisle. He left a philosophy that says human comfort, dignity, and aesthetic beauty are inefficiencies that must be eliminated in pursuit of the low price. He taught America that value is the only virtue. And the irony? The man who built his fortune on the backs of the working class who claimed to be the champion of the little guy created a dynasty of heirs who are now effectively American royalty, possessing more wealth than the bottom 40% of the entire U.S. population combined. That pickup truck belongs in a museum of modern art titled The Great American Con. So you have built a company. You make a good widget, maybe a sturdy trash can or a reliable toaster. You employ people in your hometown. You pay decent wages, and you dream of the big time. You dream of the call from Bentonville. Getting your product onto a Walmart shelf is the holy grail of retail. It is the golden ticket. It is instantaneous access to millions of customers. But be careful what you wish for, because walking into the vendor negotiating room at Walmart headquarters is not a business meeting. It is a shakedown. It is a hostage situation where the hostage is your profit margin and the weapon is a calculator. They call you a partner. That is the funniest joke in the corporate dictionary. It is the same way a python considers a gazelle a partner. In the digestion process, you walk into a small windowless room, deliberately undecorated, deliberately uncomfortable, and you sit across from a buyer who looks like they just graduated college but has the eyes of a sniper. You pitch your product. They look at your price and shake their head. They don't want your price. They want their price. And not just for today. They demand that next year the price must be lower. And the year after that, lower still. They call it continuous improvement. In reality, it is a vice tightening around your neck. Let's talk about the body count. Let's talk about Rubbermaid. This was American royalty. They made stuff that lasted forever. You probably have a Rubbermaid container in your mom's attic that survived the Cold War. In the mid-90s, the price of resin, the goop you need to make plastic, skyrocketed. Rubbermaid went to Walmart and said, "Hey partner, raw materials are up. We need to raise the price of the trash cans by a few pennies to stay alive." A normal retailer would say, "Okay, that's fair." Walmart said, "No." Actually, they didn't just say no. They threatened to delist them. They cleared the shelf space for a cheaper competitor. Rubbermaid, the titan of Worcester, Ohio, strangled on its own inventory. They had to sell themselves to a conglomerate, shutter factories, and fire American workers. Walmart didn't just buy trash cans. They trashed a company. This is the hidden tragedy of the everyday low price. It forces manufacturers to cannibalize themselves. How do you cut the price by 5% every single year? You can't just work harder. You have to cheat. You have to cut corners. You replace the metal gear with a plastic one. You make the glass thinner. You shrink the cereal box, but keep the price the same. You fire the guy making $20 an hour in Ohio and hire a guy making 20 cents an hour in Shenzhen. Walmart didn't just passively buy Chinese goods. They practically held a gun to the head of American suppliers and said, "Move your factory to China or get off our shelf." So when you pick up that toaster for $9.99, don't marvel at the bargain. Look at it for what it is. It is a hollowed-out shell of what it used to be. It is a product designed to fail, so you have to come back and buy another one. It is the artifact of a system where quality is the enemy, and the only metric that matters is the number at the bottom of the receipt. The vendor vice doesn't just squeeze companies. It squeezes the quality out of our lives, leaving us surrounded by cheap junk that breaks if you look at it wrong. Also, the beast in Bentonville can claim they saved you a dime. Then comes the invasion. It doesn't start with soldiers dropping from the sky. It starts with a real estate agent in a cheap suit scouting a patch of dirt on the edge of town. They look for the outskirts, the forgotten cow pastures just off the highway, far enough away to force you to drive, but close enough to smell the money. When the rumors start, Walmart is coming, there is always a naive excitement. The town council sees dollar signs, they see tax revenue and job creation. They roll out the red carpet for their own executioner. They don't realize they are signing the death warrant for Main Street. They are inviting a vampire into the house because he promised to do the dishes. Once the concrete slab is poured and the blue sign goes up, the clock starts ticking for every small business within a 20-mile radius. This is the Main Street Massacre. It is a slow-motion car crash that takes about 18 months to complete. First, it's the local grocer. He's been cutting your meat for 30 years. He knows exactly how you like your steak, but he can't sell ground beef for 99 cents a pound. Walmart can. In fact, Walmart will sell it for a loss. They call it predatory pricing, but let's call it what it really is: financial carpet bombing. They will deliberately bleed money on diapers, milk, and detergent just to get you in the door. They have the war chest to lose money for years. Bob the Butcher has about 3 weeks of runway. One by one, the lights go out. The hardware store where you bought your first hammer? Gone. They couldn't match the price of the Chinese imports in aisle 14. The local pharmacy? Obliterated. The family-owned clothing shop? Boarded up. It is the donut hole effect. The center of town, once the beating heart of the community, rots from the inside out. It becomes a ghost town of for-lease signs and tumbleweeds, while the life of the town migrates to the asphalt ocean on the periphery. The civic center is no longer the town square. It is the supercenter parking lot. You don't bump into your neighbors at the park anymore. You bump into them in the frozen food section, both of you looking tired, both of you buying microwave dinners because you're too exhausted from working 2 jobs to cook. And what have we lost? We lost the middle. We lost the local economy where money circulated within the town. When you bought from Bob, Bob bought a suit from the local tailor who bought lunch at the local diner. That dollar stayed home. When you spend $1 at Walmart, that money is on a wire transfer to Bentonville before the receipt even prints. It is wealth extraction on a colonial scale. We traded vibrant, unique communities for a homogenized, sterile landscape where every town looks exactly the same. You can be in Ohio, Arizona, or Maine, and if you are in a Walmart parking lot, you are nowhere. You are in the Republic of Generic. The cruelest irony is the job creation myth. They claim they are bringing jobs. Sure, they crushed 3 local businesses that employed 30 people at decent wages with benefits, and they replaced them with 20 part-time jobs at minimum wage with no health care. They don't create jobs, they downgrade them. They take a proud shopkeeper and turn him into a greeter. They take a skilled butcher and turn him into a stock associate. It is the de-skilling of America, the transformation of a nation of proprietors into a nation of clerks. We burned down the village to save money on the firewood, and now we are shivering in the cold, clutching a receipt for a $3 plastic chair. Now let's peek behind the curtain of the payroll department, or as I like to call it, the greatest magic trick in the history of capitalism. You see, Walmart figured out a way to become the richest retailer on earth while paying its workforce so little that they can barely afford to eat. How do they bridge the gap between a starvation wage and actual survival? They don't. You do. Welcome to the great welfare paradox. It is a business model so audaciously evil, you almost have to admire the sheer nerve of it. They realize that if you pay your employees just enough to not die, but not enough to actually live, the government, meaning the taxpayer, meaning you, will pick up the tab. Walk into a Walmart break room, and you might just find instructions on how to apply for food stamps. That isn't an accident. It is corporate policy. A huge chunk of their workforce relies on Medicaid, SNAP, and housing assistance just to keep the lights on. Think about the absurdity of this loop. You work at Walmart, you get paid peanuts, you go to the government to get food stamps. Then you take those food stamps right back to Walmart to buy groceries because it is the only place you can afford. The company captures the money coming and going. They have effectively turned the U.S. Treasury into their own personal ATM. We are subsidizing the payroll of a family that owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the country. Every time you pay your taxes, you're writing a check to the Walton heirs so they can buy another yacht while their cashier has to decide between insulin and rent. They created a new caste system in America, the working poor. It used to be that if you had a job, you weren't in poverty. Walmart broke that social contract. They proved you can work full-time, stand on your feet for 8 hours a day, destroy your backlifting boxes, and still be technically destitute. They weaponized the part-time label, keeping hours just below the threshold for benefits, forcing people to work 2 or 3 jobs just to cobble together a life. It is a churn and burn machine. They don't want careers. They want bodies. They treat labor like a disposable battery. Use it up until it is drained, toss it in the bin, and grab a fresh one from the pack. And God forbid you try to change it. Mention the word union in a Walmart and watch what happens. It is like whispering Voldemort at Hogwarts. But instead of Death Eaters, a corporate SWAT team descends from a private jet. They have a hotline. If a manager catches a whiff of organization, they call Bentonville. And within 24 hours, a team of union-busting experts is on the ground. They will hold mandatory meetings. They will show propaganda videos about how unions just want to take your dues. They will intimidate, isolate, and brainwash. Do you remember the butchers in Texas? A group of meat cutters at a Walmart in Jacksonville, Texas, actually voted to join a union in 2000. It was historic. It was brave. And what did Walmart do? Did they negotiate? Did they listen? No. 2 weeks later, they announced they were eliminating the meat cutting department in every single store in the United States. They switched to prepackaged meat just to crush a handful of guys in Texas. They would rather alter their entire national supply chain than let a single drop of collective bargaining poison the well. That isn't management. That is a scorched earth policy. They will burn the village to the ground before they let the peasants have a seat at the table. Let's talk about Henry Ford for a second. The man was no saint. He had some truly terrible opinions, but he understood one fundamental economic truth. In 1914, he doubled his workers' wages to $5 a day. Why? Not because he was nice. He did it because he realized that if he paid his workers enough, they could actually afford to buy the cars they were building. It was a virtuous cycle. It built the American middle class. It was the engine of the 20th century. Well, Walmart looked at that model, laughed, and decided to run it in reverse. Welcome to the reverse Henry Ford. This is the engine of the 21st century, and instead of building a middle class, it is designed to grind it into dust. The strategy is diabolically simple. You don't pay your workers enough to buy a Ford. You pay them so little that they have no choice but to shop at Walmart. It is a closed loop of poverty. They suppress wages so effectively that they create their own captive market. You slash the paycheck, destroy the local competition, and suddenly, you are the only game in town for a family trying to stretch a dollar. They aren't just your employer. They are your lifeline. You hand your paycheck right back to the company store just to survive. It is sharecropping disguised as retail. They created a self-fulfilling prophecy where the poorer they make you, the more you need them. To pull this off, they needed cheap stuff, really, really cheap stuff. And to get that, they had to look east. People talk about globalization like it was some inevitable weather pattern that just happened to us. Nonsense. Walmart didn't just ride the wave of globalization. They were the moon pulling the tides. They didn't just buy Chinese goods. They practically handed out the blueprints and paved the highway from Shenzhen to Arkansas. In the early 2000s, if Walmart were an individual country, it would have been China's 8th largest trading partner. Think about that. A single company importing more stuff than entire industrialized nations. They became the ultimate matchmaker for outsourcing. They went to American manufacturers, companies that had been making socks in Alabama or toaster ovens in Michigan for generations, and gave them the ultimatum. We need this price lower. The manufacturer says, we can't do that with American labor. And Walmart, with a shrug, says, well, there is a factory in Guangdong that can. Here is their number. Figure it out. They forced American industry to slit its own throat. If you wanted to stay on the shelf, you had to fire your neighbors and hire a stranger across the ocean. Walmart acted as the travel agent for the great American manufacturing exodus. This is the race to the bottom. It is a contest to see who can find the darkest, unregulated corner of the world to make a t-shirt for 5 cents less. And we, the consumers, cheered them on. We celebrated the low prices while ignoring the fact that we were funding the destruction of our own earning power. We traded our factory jobs for cashier jobs, traded our unions for blue vests, and traded our dignity for a discount. The always low prices sign isn't a promise. It's a tombstone for the idea that an honest day's work should buy you a decent life. We bought the cheap goods, but we paid for them with our future. By the late 90s, the beast was feeling invincible. They had conquered the 50 states. They were marching through Canada and Mexico, and the executives in Bentonville looked at a map of the world and saw only one thing: unharvested revenue. Their eyes landed on Germany. It seemed like a slam dunk. Germany is the economic engine of Europe, a land of thrifty shoppers who love a deal. It was a match made in retail heaven, right? Wrong. It was a match made in hell. And watching Walmart try to colonize the German market is like watching a slapstick comedy where the main character keeps stepping on rakes, except the rakes cost billions of dollars. They thought the whole world was just Arkansas with a funny accent. They were about to learn that culture isn't just a detail. It's a concrete wall. They rolled in with the subtlety of a monster truck rally in a library. They bought up local chains, Werkhof and Innerspar, and immediately tried to Walmartize them. They didn't adapt to Germany. They demanded Germany adapted to them. The first casualty was the smile. In the U.S., we are used to that aggressively friendly, "Can I help you, meb?" And Berpamib. We expect the cashier to beam at us like we just won the lottery. Walmart mandated this. They told their German employees, "You must smile at the customers." In Germany, if a stranger smiles at you for no reason while scanning your sausages, you don't think good service. You think, is this person hitting on me? No, or is this person deranged? Male customers thought the female cashiers were flirting. The customers were creeped out. The employees were humiliated. The Bentonville manual said, "Smile," and the German culture said, "Why?" Then came the chanting. Oh, the chanting. Imagine a group of skeptical, serious German workers standing in a circle at 7 a.m., being told to do the Walmart cheer. They were asked to pump their fists and scream, "Gimme a W, gimme an A." Now, think about German history for a second. Think about the last time large groups of people in that country were compelled to stand in formation, shout in unison, and pledge undying loyalty to a leader. It didn't vibe. It didn't vibe at all. The workers looked at the managers like they had joined a cult. They didn't feel motivated. They felt like they were in a dystopia. The American executives couldn't understand why these efficient Germans wouldn't just drink the Kool-Aid. But the real war was over labor. Walmart, the champion of union busting, walked into the home of the strongest labor protections in the world. They tried to play their usual games. They tried to spy on workers. They tried to implement an ethics code that banned employees from dating each other or their superiors, complete with a hotline to report inappropriate romances. They tried to regulate the bedrooms of their staff. A German court looked at this rule and essentially said, "Are you insane? This violates the basic human dignity and privacy of the citizen." They tossed the rule out. The mighty legal team from Arkansas was getting schooled by German labor judges who didn't care about shareholder value. They cared about the law. And the pricing? Walmart tried their classic predatory pricing move. They slashed the price of milk, butter, and sugar below the cost of production to drive the local competitors, like Aldi and Lidl, out of business. In America, this is just Tuesday. In Germany, it is illegal. The German High Court stepped in and said, "You cannot destroy the market just because you have deep pockets. Stop it." Walmart was baffled. They were being told they couldn't bully their way to a monopoly. Without the ability to exploit workers or break antitrust laws, the Walmart model simply fell apart. It was a total disaster. The shelves were in the wrong places. The groceries were bagged wrong. Germans bag their own stuff at lightning speed. They don't want a greeter slowing them down. The American friendliness was seen as fake and intrusive. After burning through billions of dollars and uniting the entire country against them, the beast did something it rarely does. It surrendered. In 2006, they sold the stores at a massive loss and fled back across the Atlantic, tail firmly between their legs. It proved that the always low prices theology isn't a universal law of physics. It is a specifically American pathology that doesn't survive contact with a culture that values dignity over a discount. For decades, Walmart was the apex predator in the jungle. They were the T-Rex, stomping through the retail landscape, devouring everything in their path, confident that nothing could challenge their size. But while the T-Rex was busy eating the local hardware store, a meteor was hurtling toward the planet. A bald, laughing meteor named Jeff Bezos. This is the Bezos nightmare. It is the moment the bully on the playground turned around and realized there was a bigger, crazier kid standing right behind him, holding a flamethrower. For years, the executives in Bentonville looked at the internet like it was a fad, a cute little hobby for nerds who didn't want to leave their basements. They were arrogant. They believed in the sanctity of the physical store. They believed that Americans loved the experience of walking 3 miles through a parking lot to fight over a discounted flat-screen TV. They were wrong. While Walmart was obsessing over squeezing another half-cent out of a supplier, Amazon was building a Death Star in the cloud. Amazon wasn't trying to build a better store. They were building a new reality where the store comes to you. They made the act of going to Walmart feel like churning butter, an archaic, painful chore that you only do if you absolutely have to. The panic when it finally set in was delicious to watch. You could smell the fear wafting all the way from Arkansas. Suddenly, the everyday low price didn't matter as much as free 2-day shipping. Walmart realized they were staring into the abyss of irrelevance. They looked at Sears, the fallen giant of the 20th century, and saw their own ghost in the mirror. They realized that being the biggest retailer in the world doesn't mean anything if the world decides it would rather click a button than put on pants. So, the beast tried to dance, and folks watching a 60-year-old corporate monolith try to pivot to tech cool is like watching your dad try to TikTok. It is painful. They went on a desperate spending spree. They threw $3 billion at Jet.com, a startup that was basically burning cash in a barrel, just to buy some digital street cred. They tried to buy their way into the cool kids' table. They hired guys in hoodies to sit in rooms with guys in pleated khakis, hoping the magic would rub off. It was a clash of civilizations. The Walmart culture of save every penny collided headfirst with the Silicon Valley culture of move fast and break things. They frantically started turning their supercenters into fulfillment centers. They launched Walmart Plus, a clumsy Me Too version of Prime that screams of desperation. Please like us. We have free shipping too. They are fighting a war on 2 fronts now. In the physical world, they are defending their turf against the dollar stores nipping at their heels. In the digital world, they are the underdog, frantically paddling to keep up with the Amazon yacht. They are terrified. And they should be. Because for the first time in history, the predator has become the prey. They are no longer the ones setting the rules. They are just trying to survive the game. Now, let's look at the receipt. Not the little slip of thermal paper that fades in your wallet after 3 days. I'm talking about the receipt the planet is holding. We have talked about the economic cost, the human cost, and the cultural cost. But what about the physical aftermath of all this cheapness? Welcome to the aftermath of cheap, where the bill comes due in carbon, plastic, and poison. Every time you buy that $5 toaster or that $3 pack of t-shirts, you are participating in a global relay race of pollution. Think about the journey of a single Walmart toy. It starts as oil pumped out of the ground in the Middle East. That oil is shipped to a refinery, then to a factory in China, where it is molded into a plastic action figure by a worker breathing in toxic fumes. It is wrapped in hard plastic, that clamshell packaging that requires a hacksaw and a tetanus shot to open. It is put in a cardboard box, put on a pallet, put in a shipping container, and loaded onto a massive cargo ship. That ship burns bunker fuel, the dirtiest, sludge-like oil on the planet, to cross the Pacific Ocean. It lands in Long Beach, gets loaded onto a diesel truck and driven 2,000 miles to a distribution center, then to a store, then to your house. You give it to your kid. They play with it for 15 minutes. It breaks. You throw it in the trash. That is the life cycle of the everyday low price. We are burning the planet to move garbage from one hemisphere to another. We are extracting finite resources, turning them into temporary amusements, and burying them in the ground. Future archaeologists will dig up our civilization, and they won't find pyramids or cathedrals. They will find layers of sediment composed entirely of discarded Funko Pops and broken lawn chairs. They will look at this geological stratum of plastic and wonder. What were these people thinking? Did they really trade their atmosphere for a discount spatula? Walmart didn't just sell us products. They rewired our brains. They taught us to value quantity over quality. They normalized the idea of disposable. 50 years ago, if you bought a blender, you expected it to last until you died. If it broke, you fixed it. Today, if your blender breaks, you don't even check the warranty. You just shrug, toss it in the landfill, and go buy another one because it's only $20. We treat durable goods like paper plates. We have become a culture of endless replacement. The dopamine hit isn't in the having, it's in the buying. It's the thrill of the hunt in the clearance aisle. The brief surge of satisfaction when you scan the item, followed by the immediate emptiness when you get it home and realize it's junk. And let's talk about the packaging. Oh, the packaging. Walmart demands that everything be shelf-ready. That means encased in armor. You buy a USB drive the size of your thumb, and it comes in a piece of plastic the size of a dinner plate. Why? To prevent theft, to make it stackable, to make it look shiny. We are wrapping trash in trash. We are creating mountains of non-biodegradable waste just to make the logistics easier for the Bentonville algorithm. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch isn't just an accident. It is the logical conclusion of the Walmart supply chain. It is the floating island of misfit products, the ghost of Christmas past, swirling in the ocean, choking the fish, and eventually breaking down into microplastics that end up in your blood. So when you see that rollback sign, remember, the price is low because the environmental cost has been externalized. You aren't paying for the carbon. You aren't paying for the landfill space. You aren't paying for the cleanup. The planet is subsidizing your shopping habit. The earth is running a tab, and unlike a credit card debt, you can't declare bankruptcy on physics. We are stripping the world bare to fill our garages with stuff we don't need, bought with money we don't have, to impress people we don't like. And the beast in Bentonville just keeps smiling that yellow plastic smile because as long as the register is ringing, they don't care if the world is burning. Here we are at the end of the aisle. The conveyor belt has stopped moving. The cashier is waiting, and it is time to pay the bill. We have looked at the billions of dollars, the crushed unions, the hollowed-out towns, and the mountains of plastic trash. Now, we have to look at the final receipt. But this isn't a receipt for milk and eggs. This is a receipt for a way of life. When we tally it all up, when we do the math that Sam Walton never wanted us to do, the total is staggering. The question isn't, did we save money? The question is, what did we spend? We spent our independence. We handed the keys of our local economies to a board of directors 1,000 miles away. We decided that it was too much trouble to support the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, so we fired them and hired a logistics algorithm instead. We traded the messy, human, inefficient beauty of community for the sterile, air-conditioned efficiency of the warehouse. We looked at our neighbors and decided we'd rather save 50 cents on a tube of toothpaste than ensure they had a livelihood. We broke the social contract that said a town should sustain itself and replaced it with a corporate extraction model that sucks the wealth out of our zip codes and deposits it into a family trust fund in Arkansas. We spent our dignity. We accepted a world where the working poor is a standard demographic. We accepted that it is normal for a full-time job to not pay a living wage. We accepted that the taxpayer should subsidize the profits of the richest company on earth. We allowed the value of a human hour to be driven down to the price of a cheap hamburger. We normalized the idea that if you are poor, you deserve to be treated like cattle, herded through lines, monitored by cameras, and sold garbage that falls apart in your hands. We bought into the lie that we are consumers first and citizens second. We spent our culture. Go to a Walmart in Maine? Now go to one in Florida. Now go to one in California. They are exactly the same. The same smell, the same lights, the same products, the same misery. We have homogenized the human experience. We have paved over the unique quirks of our regions and replaced them with a blue and gray monoculture. We have flattened the world. We sacrificed the flavor of the local for the consistency of the corporate. We built a world where you can travel 3,000 miles and never actually leave the store. And for what? That is the tragedy that really sticks in your throat. For what? Did we build a utopia? Did we solve hunger? Did we create a golden age of art and philosophy? No. We did it for cheap stuff. We did it for a toaster that costs $9. We did it so we could fill our houses with more plastic, more electronics, more clothes we wear once and throw away. We sold our birthright for a mess of pottage, and the pottage was made in a sweatshop and tastes like preservatives. So the next time you walk through those sliding doors, don't just look at the price tag. Look at the invisible price tag hanging off everything in the store. Look at that gallon of milk and see the dairy farmer who went bankrupt. Look at that cheap t-shirt and see the river in Asia turned purple by dye. Look at the greeter and see the pension they lost. Look at the empty storefronts on Main Street that you drove past to get there. The Walmart effect isn't just about a store. It is a mirror. It shows us exactly who we are and what we value. It shows us that, when push comes to shove, we will choose the easy lie over the hard truth. We will choose the discount over the neighbor. We will choose the immediate gratification over the long-term survival. The store didn't conquer us by force. It conquered us by giving us exactly what we asked for. We wanted cheap. We got cheap. And now, standing in the wreckage of what used to be a society, holding a bag full of discount junk, we have to ask ourselves, was it worth it? The scanner beeps. The total is displayed. And the saddest part is, we are going to pay it. We are going to swipe the card, take the receipt, and walk out the door, right past the yellow smiley face that is laughing at us all.